Hi everyone, it's Dr. Yurda. I'm excited to have you here today. This will be part one of a two-part presentation on developing learner agency. Today we'll cover voice, choice, and engagement. Next week we'll be looking at motivation, ownership, purpose, and self-efficacy. The whole presentation is about leveraging technology to help develop learner agency. And what can I say? Developing learner agency is out of this world. See what I did there? All right, as we get started, after my horrible joke there, we're gonna look at developing learner agency, and I want you to pay attention to this image as I'm speaking. What do you notice? Do you see that everybody is in straight rows? They all appear to be male, right? They're all white. Everyone is facing the front of the classroom. So we lack diversity in this photo. It's clear that the students are not the ones making any choice or expressing voice or engaged probably at all in the learning. This was during the time of a formulaic approach to schooling. You know, you could work hard in school, go to college, and then you climb the corporate ladder. That was the American dream. We can't approach education that way anymore. Not that it was, super successful back then, because the global economy is allowing us to outsource many of our jobs already. So who knows what it's going to look like in 20 years. So right now we've got jobs that are getting done with AI and robotics in addition to the outsourcing. Our students are going to be entering a workplace fraught with instability. They're going to have to be self-directed. They're going to have to be creative. And they're going to have to be forward thinking. Our students will not all need to be entrepreneurs, but they will need to think like them. And for this reason, John Spencer interviewed a bunch of entrepreneurs from a wide range of industries, and he asked two questions. One, what do you wish you had learned about in school? And two, what are the required skills to thrive in your industry? And as he was conducting this research, he found that answers always included it was not about transferable skills, it's about a mindset. And we talked about that in the first week of class. You have to be able to try and overcome problems. If something doesn't work, keep going, find another way. You have to be a self-starter, and you have to be able to self-manage. You have to keep yourself on track, make sure things get finished. No one is going to be standing behind you to make sure it gets done. As teachers, if we are the ones choosing the resources, delivering the content, asking the questions, designing the project, providing the feedback, giving the grades, what are our learners doing? And remember, if you're doing all the work, you're also doing all the learning. I know that you have a curriculum map and I know that you have standards. But please remember the curriculum map tells you what you have to teach. You can go beyond that. And there are many standards that are broad enough that allow student choice to be easily integrated. Start there. All right, with voice, this is the first facet of developing learner agency. This is where learners can really share opinions about something they believe in. Some of our learners, and when I think about this group, it's typically the people that are most concerned about grades. And I would have put myself in that category when I was going through school. Some of our learners don't feel comfortable expressing their true opinions. So giving them voice, helping them to realize how important their voices are and that they have the ability to advocate for causes that are important to them, it helps them own and eventually direct their learning. So we've got a continuum here. I love this. It's done by Sylvia Duckworth. Her name is down here in the bottom corner. And it's on future slides as well. I know it's kind of hard to see right there. She is on Twitter, so you can follow her on Twitter. But she took the work of Bray, also on Twitter, and McClaskey, and organized what they did into a sketch note page, which I think is really organized, where you've got more teacher-centered voice on the left-hand side, learner-centered in the middle, and then learner-driven up towards the right-hand side of the page. Because as with anything in life, learner voice, it comes in a continuum. So this whole, hey, we're all pretty good at this part, expression, consultation, and participation, is because this is more teacher-centered. It aligns with our typical model of schooling. As we work to move into the partnership, activism, leadership phases, there are a few things to consider. Partnership entails having students collaborate with others. Learners can also participate in the design of lessons and projects and assessments. Teachers and learners in this phase are becoming partners in the learning process. Then you have activism. This is where your learners are identifying problems or challenges that they might want to solve. They can advocate for a cause that's super important to them. This is where your learners are driving their own learning. And then finally, on that leadership level, learners are guiding the change process. They understand that they can use their voices to lead others. That's powerful. Next, we have choice. And I want you to think about this before we start really talking about it. Have you ever been given complete choice in class? How did that make you feel? My students, when I do open things up and they have complete onus of control and complete choice to do what they want, find it confusing and overwhelming. And the questions I get are typically, how many points is this worth? What if I don't have this introduction here? Can I have this be about anything? What do you mean anything? Like, what do people normally do? So it can be really overwhelming, like I said. So when this happens, because we've conditioned our learners to function in this way, right? We've got them in a box. We give them rubrics that are 12 pages long. Check each thing off as you do it. It helps as you transition into more learner-driven instruction to provide options. So maybe students have a choice board or they're beginning with a menu. And then slowly move that ownership of learning to the students where they're choosing the purposes of their learning and they're more in the driver's seat. We have another continuum here, again, drawn by Sylvia Duckworth. The far left is the most teacher-centered. They've got it up here. And then as you move to the right, you're getting more learner-driven. Here is where teachers are providing a menu of options, right? So this, you would think it was farther along the continuum. It's actually not. It is the first step. This is where your teacher is providing, like I said, the menu of options. Maybe learners get to learn content through images or videos, text-based resources, audio, hands-on activities, interactions with peers. They've got a lot of choices in how they get the information, which really makes me think of UDL, right? Multiple modes of representation. They also have the onus to show what they know in a variety of ways, right? Maybe they do a song, maybe they create an iMovie, maybe they make a poster. So again, UDL with multiple means of action and expression. Next, you've got co-designer. Here, the teacher is more of a tour guide and presents learning possibilities. The teacher in the co-designer phase collaborates with learners to brainstorm ideas for lesson design, assessment strategies, and types of tools and resources to use. Designer is where learners begin to have more control over their learning. They get to choose topics, they get to choose the direction of their learning based on personal interests, talents, and passions. So for example, at my daughter's school, when they engage in research, so they're covering research content standards in ELA, they have total control over what project, what content topic they want to research. So they're learning how to do the research, but the topic that they're invested in is completely chosen by them. So it's driven by their own passions, which means they spend a lot of time, even at home, working on finding more information because it's a topic they were inherently interested in to begin with. In the advocate stage, learners are choosing a challenge or problem that they're passionate about, and they're making a difference. So this makes me think more of the state of flow because the learners will persevere through problems in this stage. If they hit a snag, they'll ask other people how to move past it. They have an authentic voice and a clear purpose. So they're identifying that challenge or problem, and then they're working to come up with a solution. In the entrepreneur phase, your learners are self-directing. They're adjusting learning based on what they want to do with their lives. They take their ideas and passions, maybe they create or join a business or a cause. And even our youngest learners here can come up with an idea that improves a product, or they can invent something that's never been done before. I told you already, I taught 5th grade, and one year I had my students, my read aloud that year for this phase of the year was A Long Walk to Water. And after reading the book, I had a group of students. This was completely started by them, maintained by this group. It was totally student driven. But I had a group that was so interested in the book and what the book was based on, a real story, that they decided to research on their own what was going on in Sudan, which is where the book took place, to develop wells to provide water to small areas. And this group, through their research, found that the young man that the book was based on had started a fund, a project to bring wells to Sudan. He collected money and built these wells. He already had this project established. So my students kind of tapped into that. And they, in their communities, in our school, in their churches, in their neighborhoods, started collecting money to contribute to this project. And they did this all on their own. It was a topic that they were passionate about. They did the research. They collected the money. They advocated for a cause that was super important to them. I think that's absolutely phenomenal. And they were 10, right? So learners of any age can do this. The learners build a support system as a personal learning network. And we're going to be doing this with Twitter later in the semester. So when you hit a problem, when you hit a snag, when something happens that you're not expecting, you can turn to your personal learning network and ask for some advice in moving forward. A PLN, the Personal Learning Network, helps guide the learners in building, designing, creating, developing, promoting an idea or a product. So it's a really helpful group of people that have interests aligned with yours. The last piece that we're going to talk about today is engagement. And engagement, and I think this is obvious, right? Engagement has been found to be one of the biggest predictors of learner performance and behavior. And this is true across content areas. Think about your own lessons that you've taught. When students are most engaged is when their brains are active, they are learning because their brains are active, they are persevering through challenges, they're going to figure it out. Behavior is certainly not going to be an issue because the learners are so busy, they're so engaged, they don't have time to goof off. This really makes me think of the conversation we had in class last week about the concept of flow. All right, and here is our last slide. We've got a continuum of engagement here. We're moving from the bottom up. We're going to start down here with being compliant. This is where our students are when they're in it for the grade. And some of us are there, in this very class. I hope you move out of it. But being compliant, you're going to do the projects, you're going to jump through the hoops so that you can get the grade that you need. This is where you'll see the teacher doing most of the talking, and learners are usually following directions. As they move up the process, learners are more connected with the learning and have ownership in the learning process. All the way up, we've got connect here. There's increased dynamic interaction. There's sharing. Students are generating questions and seeking solutions to challenges and problems. And then here's our favorite stage, flow. This is our messy learning. It's hard to capture in a description because this is where learners are pursuing their own interests. They're curious, they're seeking what they're passionate about, they're setting goals, they're monitoring their own progress. It's really interesting. They also share what they learn here. So making sure that they can share out with authentic audiences is crucial. All right, guys, this is the end of part 1. I will see you again next week to do part 2 of developing learner agency.